there. I am Sarah Redmond, the TV editor here at the LA Times, and we are so pleased to have in our presence today the lovely and talented Ms. Riley Keough. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So we are here. I have like 1,000 questions,
Okay.
but we don't have that much time, so I will try and keep it to like 150 questions.
Okay, sounds good.
We're here to talk primarily about the girlfriend experience, which I just finished watching on Starz, and what a remarkable show and what a great opportunity for a young actress to literally be in every scene of the show. Was it so much work?
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't actually think about that until we were like halfway through the shoot. For some reason, it didn't register that I'm in like every scene. And I'm like, I never get a second to sit down. And then I was like, oh yeah, like literally there's not really a second storyline. So I don't know. It wasn't something that I put a lot of thought into before I was shooting it. I did not realize how much work it was going to be.
Yeah, it's such an interesting concept too. So for the folks who haven't seen it, the girlfriend experience, it basically describes a high-priced escort service where it's not just one night or a few hours, that you're doing this ongoing relationship with a client, and it's a very high end, and I think that the show reflects that too. I mean, talk about the way it looks a little bit. My goodness, the sets and the sleekness and the costumes. That must have been a cool world to be in.
Totally, yeah. I mean, that was all the filmmakers creating that world, and I mean, they had a very, very specific idea for what they wanted, and I think executed that perfectly, along with the DP, who's incredible, Stephen Meisler, and yeah, it was. I think it was so perfect for this world.
Yeah, it's just beautifully shot.
Yeah, beautifully shot, and it does something really interesting to like the corporate setting, and it makes it sort of eerie, but sort of slick and pretty, and
right. It's mundane, but it's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's like got this everyday aesthetic to it, but at the same time, you're like, I want to live there, but do I want to live there? Because you have all this great dialogue throughout the season talking about how everybody's selling something. I mean, that there are people judging your character, Christine Reed, in the show for the choices that she is making about being an escort, and it's funny because you have this great exchange with somebody near the end of the season where you're talking about like everybody's selling something, that's the economy. And as like a law student and as an intern, like everybody is doing a performance, everybody is selling something. And it seems to me like you and the show are not making any judgment about what she's doing.
Right, yeah, that was really important to all of us, and kind of what interested me in the show. Like looking into this world with no judgment, and you know, allowing a human being to have their own moral code without sort of, you know, having our own preconceived sort of ideas about how it should be or what's right or wrong, or
I think that's really difficult though, and it's what's so interesting about the character to me is that you see that you have this great opportunity to have this arc where you know she's not making a judgment about it. She's making calculations. Like you can see she's making those calculations and what's going to work for her and what isn't. And I don't know that there are that many people in the world like Christine Reed that would approach this that way. That she's not. I love that she's not coming from the sort of tragic background that we hear about people making these kinds of choices. And I mean, she's a special person. And at one point, you ask your character that plays your sister if you're a sociopath. Do you think Christine's a sociopath?
Yeah, I mean, people ask that a lot, but I think that you know, there's that thing that sociopaths can't self-diagnose, so I don't, you know, like.
So as long as you're asking, you're safe?
Yeah, I think so. I think, well, a really important thing to me about the show is we didn't really want to explain her so much, and we wanted people to experience it for themselves and project whatever they're feeling or whatever their opinions are onto her and the show.
So did you find yourself having to catch yourself though, thinking you would not make these choices in your life, but she would? Like, did you ever find yourself being like, oh, I need to get out of the Riley headspace and into the Christine headspace?
A couple times, but you know, it's hard to work like that because you're not in the right headspace. So probably like twice, but because it was like you said, I didn't really have time to like think about it too much. I woke up and was Christine all day and went to sleep and woke up and was, you know, so obviously I wouldn't. That's not something that, I mean, it's not obvious because you don't know me, but it's not something that I would do.
I feel like in just a little bit of time I know you would not do this.
No, it's not something that I would do, but you know, you have to, in order, I think, to play somebody, be able to understand them 100%. So I got to a place where I didn't question her behavior at all, which was very liberating, because to play somebody who's very, very sure of themselves and their ethics and their moral codes and not sort of wavering or questioning that is like very powerful.
Because who do we know that does that?
I don't know anyone.
Like,
so
really, in life?
There are, you know, I mean, and obviously there's probably times in her life where she questions things, but for the most part, I think she's got her sort of way of life, sort of, it's very clear to her.
So do you think that character's happy, though? I wondered that over the course of the show. There were times where I felt like she clearly relishes control. And I think that people who relish control, to speak from maybe personal experience, are happy when they're in control.
Yeah.
But then there are times where she's out of control, but it also seems like she might enjoy that as well.
I think that, you know, I think it's a difficult question. I think the way to look at it is like a human being. I think that she has moments where she's unhappy and happy, and but I think in general she's not an unhappy person. And that's kind of what we wanted to show, is a woman who was doing this by choice, who wasn't traumatized or, you know, I don't know if I can curse on here, but and was like had a lot going for her, was intelligent, and you know, her choice to do this and her enjoyment of it. So I think, you know, like I said, she's probably goes through different emotions, but in general I would say she's a fairly happy person, and you know, there's moments, like you said, where she loses control, that I think that's where she's the least comfortable.
But I think it felt like there was something that she enjoyed about it, though, that even if she was outside her comfort zone,
Right.
there was something that I think all people have,
Yeah.
that like when you go a little bit outside of, you're like, oh, that's scary, but it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
fun.
Totally. And then she sort of reels it back in and, you know, manipulates and blackmails everybody and then gets control again.
Yeah.
But I do think she probably enjoys it and creates sort of a game for herself.
Yeah, I mean, because she has to know on a certain level, like we all do, the choices that you make that could potentially lead to chaos.
Yeah.
And one of the things I liked about the show is that there's, as sort of sleek as it is and as stylized as it is, there's a realness to the situations that a lot of times you're in something and you don't really know what your reaction to it is until later. And there's one really pivotal part of the show, and we won't spoil it, but there's a sex tape that is leaked. And the reaction is very calm and in shock at first, and then like it's calamity.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is not the way TV would normally play it.
Totally. And that's what I love about it so much, is like that's, you know, that's probably, if that were to happen to me, for example, I think that it wouldn't be some like crazy dramatic thing for me during the, like, when you hear terrible news, or, you know, you go into a state of shock for a minute and then you try and, you know, if it's jeopardizing yourself, try and figure out how to fix it, you know, something like that. I would imagine. I've never had that happen, but
And not
you know,
none of us will.
yeah, no, totally. And I think especially with her, she's like so, you know, in control all the time and manipulating and constantly, you know, her mind works that way already. So I think she goes straight into like, how do I fix this, you know, which was great and realistic. And I watched the episode once and I felt like they did a great job at that sort of real-time experience she's having.
Exactly, because I feel like on most television shows it would just be
Go ham
bananas
with it.
for
Yeah,
like
totally.
exactly, go ham right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Just be like, what?
Yeah, totally.
And, but you know what's interesting about that is there are very few. I wouldn't say that the show is dark, but I would say that it's serious. And there are a few moments sort of levity. But I wonder about working with Marilyn Rice Cub, that she's this very funny person in this very serious setting. Was she someone that kept things light?
Yes,
in between?
I could not. Oh God, sorry. Oh my God, I could not be serious with her. It was so hard.
We're blaming that on her.
Yeah,
she
that was
brought
her.
that out
That
of
was
you.
her. That was her. That was Marilyn. No, I couldn't. Like, it was really, and I have.
And
I
her
had a hard
character
time-
was very serious too, and she
Yeah,
did
but
such a great
she's just
job.
so funny. Like her energy and her vibe is just so funny. Like even when she's being, you know, she's being serious, she'll leave the scene and say something funny immediately, and I'm just like, it was hard.
But was that also good in a way too?
It was
to
great.
keep things
Yeah,
light?
totally. You don't want to. It's not for me a nice work environment to be in a like corporate area in a building with like a bunch of serious people all day, you know. So and
I mean, and then you you put that up against what you're doing at night on the show,
Right.
and which is a is a Starz staple. But I think that this show did approach the sex aspect of it in a different way. I mean, obviously it was transactional; it was part of the storyline. But I feel like the filmmakers and the people that were actually shooting it in a way were asking us questions as they were shooting it. That it wasn't just sex for sex sake, because that's what Christine does. That they were challenging us in our gaze. Like, what is it that you're getting from this and the storyline? Because then we're also seeing super, like, you're going to the bathroom, you're getting a wax, like you're doing these things that we all do that going through life that are very basic. And we're saying, what's the difference between doing that and doing this?
Exactly.
And I'm imagining that part of it. Did you get to read much of it before you started?
I actually did. I got to read all 13 episodes, which is, I don't know if that ever happens, but it was special and really helpful for me.
So you got to see that it was worth doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, you put yourself out there in a way that I'm sure must have been uncomfortable at times.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm like got something wrong with me, but like when I'm working, I don't have like attention on myself really. Now I'm like, oh yeah, like everyone has access to that. It was really intense, but I still stand by like the reasons why I wanted to do it for myself and for the world, and everything that I sort of do for me at this point in my life, there's like some sort of purpose behind, and
which is a little like Christine. What does Christine say? That I only want to spend time with people
everyone
if I'm
loves
accomplishing
that line.
something.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great
It's very
line.
true. Yeah, I think
Because I think it's
people,
the kind of thing that people think, but they don't say.
Exactly, and I think that's one of the things that I think people will love about watching Christine and playing her is you get to just she's never, she's always saying those things that you'd have a hard time really saying.
Yeah, and it's interesting because she doesn't give what was more sort of unsettling to me than that I think the shocking aspect of it that it might be for other viewers was the way that she interacts with her parents and with other people in her life where she's just not giving them.
Yeah.
The sex tape leaks, you go back to your parents' house, and it's clear everybody wants to talk about it, but she's just not having it. She's like, I don't need to have a conversation about this. Whereas I think most people would be like, oh my God, and I'm so sorry, and I didn't do that. And there's a level of humiliation or embarrassment that she just doesn't have, or if she does have it, she's hiding it.
Yeah.
And so when you make those choices about the character, I mean, some of it's obviously in the script, but are there choices like that are harder to make than others?
It just sort of like, once I sort of figured out who she was, it just was easy. And generally, if I think you figure out who the person is fully, then it becomes really easy to figure out how they'll react to different situations. And with her, I think that genuinely she thinks she's like the smartest person in the whole world, and like doesn't really question how she feels about, she thinks she's right. So it wasn't really a choice as much as it was just, I think, understanding her.
Right.
Which I guess, yeah. So it was, all of us had ideas about who she was, and we talked about it a bit. And Amy and Lodge did an amazing job at writing this person, and bringing her to life was, I wouldn't say she was different to the page, but it definitely, we all sort of added in our own pieces of Christine, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a complete character, and then you have this aspect. It's funny that you say that because not only is she the smartest person in the room, sort of calculating her new life as an escort, but she also doesn't want to just cut and paste the letters that the law firm wants her to cut and paste, that are these basic cease and desist letters from like the smallest thing in the office to the biggest thing in her life. She's in full control of it. I mean, I would imagine that's actually pretty fun to play.
Totally. It was so much fun to play. It was so much fun to play.
So was there ever any sort of like ritual that you went through? Because obviously she's an escort, so we see you in situations where she's intimate with a number of men. And do you like have a conversation like, hi, I'm Riley, it's nice to meet you, we're gonna be pretending to have sex later today. Like, let's go over some rules.
It was different guy to guy. Some of them were more nervous than others, some of them weren't. I think that was a difficult thing about the show, is constantly having to be intimate with different personalities like every day. Just because it takes a lot of energy, not just the sex but like the interactions with the actors, you know, that was intense. But yeah, it was, you know, everyone was great. All the day players were great. All the her clients, the guys who played all the clients were amazing. Like,
they were really well cast too, in terms of like diversity of like the characters and the things that they wanted, and seeming like real guys, that they weren't just guys that did this all the time. Some of them were nervous, some of them were accomplished. I mean, it felt authentic in a way.
Yeah, totally. They was really well cast, and so yeah, it was pretty comfortable, you know. I definitely was probably more comfortable than some of the men, just because I was doing it more.
You're doing it all the time.
Yeah.
You were just coming in one
Episode
day.
13, which was a bit intense. Did you see it?
Yes.
Okay. I pretend that one doesn't exist.
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on. Definitely watch till the end, is what we're saying.
Yeah. That one,
There's some role playing that happens.
Yeah, I think that I talked to the other actors a bit before that one. Generally, like, you know, everyone's a professional and knows, you know, how to do their thing, and
Right,
I'm not,
of course.
you know, but there were times where I could feel that people were a little bit uncomfortable. And
Well, you would
like,
become the expert at that point.
Yeah, it
It's
was kind
funny
of
because you're role playing, you're acting this thing where she's role playing
Yeah,
this thing
yeah.
with these
It's
levels
very
of like
complicated.
meta acting to it.
totally.
But the thing is, so is the David Tellis character, so is the Marilyn Rice Cub character. Like everybody's acting.
Yeah, like in real life, kind
Yeah,
of.
I mean, I guess on some level, all life is performance art, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so
totally.
she's just
I mean,
taking
I
it
don't
to a
know,
different
like,
level.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, like two people that I act the same with in my life, really. Maybe both my parents. But other than that, like,
And even then, probably not.
maybe a little bit different.
depending on what you want.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, so it's just that.
So
life.
Starz was clearly the home for this, and what I thought was interesting about making it 30 minutes, it seemed like, whose decision was that? And it seems like a really smart decision, because it's an intense world to live in,
Yeah.
and maybe an hour would have been too much.
I agree. I don't know whose decision that was. I'm assuming the filmmakers and Steven's sort of collaborative. I would assume, because Starz kind of just let them go and do their thing. So I would assume that they decided that it was going to be half hour.
Yeah, and it's just such a good choice. And so for people who don't know, this was actually based somewhat, it's not based exactly on the 2009 film of the same name that Mr. Soderbergh directed, but it's adapted, I guess, is a way to say that. Was he particularly involved in this, or was he sort of hands off, like, here's, you know, you're adapting my work and I'll answer questions?
Him and this one of the other producers had an idea to explore the subject matter more, because they thought that it was a very interesting subject, and that it would do well as a TV show, because you have whatever it is, six and a half hours to explore this subject. But it wasn't based off of the film. So then he went and asked Amy and Lodge if they wanted to be a part of it, and they wrote the episodes. And I don't know how much input he had during the writing process.
But he wasn't on the set, sort of working with you or anything.
No,
like
he
that.
he called me and we talked before the show, and he's very interested in helping other artists and push them to do great work, and so he doesn't want to like control everything also, which is amazing. So he
Rare.
and rare, yeah, totally. So he kind of sort of picked Amy, Lodge, Stephen, the DP, and myself, and had us go away and do this thing, which was really amazing of him. He did come visit, but he was very respectful of all the other artists and
Right,
involved.
and to have two people working like that, Lodge and Amy, who also played your sister, you have a real feeling to it that is cohesive, because this is the first TV thing you've done?
Yes, my first ever.
And so do you feel spoiled for
I've never
TV
even guest
now?
starred
Have
on a
people
TV show.
told you it's not normally
Yeah,
like
it's
this?
hard. Yeah, I feel so lucky. I think it's happening a lot more now. Shows being shot like films and being more sort of director driven, and but it was an amazing transition for me, because I'd heard all these things like how rigid TV was, and that you had to hit your mark and deliver your line, and it was very like whatever, so that kind of scared me. But the whole idea for this show was to use the independent film format, so it was like very not that.
Right. So would you be willing to do another TV
Yeah,
show?
I would love to do another show at some point. It's hard. It's the other thing that I got lucky with was that it was, you know, I was always meant to just do one
season of
season, and that they were going to have different women do all the other seasons.
So like if there is a second season, which I don't
think
we
that's
know
the plan.
yet.
I don't actually know, but originally that was the plan, that I was just to do one season and that they would have other women do different storylines. But I actually don't even know what's happening at this point. But
you feel like personally that Christine's story is complete? Because
I do.
I mean, we could keep watching what happens next, because I mean, at the end, she comes to a place that could be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
But you feel like
I really do. I really feel like they wrapped it up in a brilliant way and almost kind of funny and.
It was very funny. She's back in control,
yeah,
which is heartening, because at first you're not sure whether you're rooting for her because this might be dangerous for her life.
Yeah.
But then when you see how in control she is,
Yeah.
the fact that she loses it and gets it back in a way that is clearer, and you can see that in her eyes, that
Totally.
there might not be another calamity, but there might, and that might be interesting to watch.
Yeah, totally.
But
Yeah.
you're done.
Yeah, I felt done, and I told Chris Albrecht, who, you know, from Starz, and I was like, you know, because season 2 came up at one point, we were having a dinner, and I said myself, I really feel like it's done, and I feel like it would sort of be really milking it to do more on Christine, and they all agreed, and so yeah.
It will be interesting to see where it goes, because they really could extrapolate different stories in different parts of the country, different parts of the world.
Yeah, exactly. They could really do anything at this point.
Yeah.
That's what's great about TV at the moment, too. You can really do whatever you want, almost.
Absolutely. So we can hopefully welcome you back. Do you watch much television yourself?
I do. I do. I have been really bad at it the past few months.
I don't think you should make a value judgment about it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. I've been really busy.
You can catch up.
I have a lot to catch up on.
So what do you like to watch?
All kinds of stuff. I love Game of Thrones.
Did you watch last night?
No, I haven't seen
Okay,
like the
I won't
last
say anything.
3.
It's great.
So don't tell me.
Catch up.
Okay. I will definitely. That's consistent. You know, I love True Detective. I love all these. I like a lot of TV shows, but that's the one that just gets me every season.
Yeah, it gets you and a lot of other people
Yeah.
too. So,
Yeah.
but you are now. Have you already shot the Logan Lucky? This, because you're not stopping with Mr. Soderbergh now. You're moving along. She was also in Magic Mike, and so you were just apparently one of his favorites in his repertory company. So, when does Logan Lucky start shooting?
I actually have no idea.
all
I
right.
think it's this year. I think there's a lot of schedules they're working with, so I don't know exactly.
But this cast, though, Adam Driver and you, and is Seth MacFarlane in this movie?
I don't know. I keep hearing different people are in it, and every week there's like a new person. And
Right, you're just
I've heard all
deciding
these
to
rumors.
show up
yeah,
and see
I'm just
who's
gonna
there.
show up. Yeah, you never know with Steven what's gonna happen.
And then you're also working in a film which I believe has begun shooting, The Discovery with Robert Redford.
Oh yeah, I finished that in I don't even know what month we're in now.
It's June now.
I think I finished it in April.
And explain this premise, because I think this is a really interesting idea for a film.
It's basically, you know, it's a guy who finds out that there is such a thing as the afterlife.
Like
and
scientifically
proves that there is an afterlife, and it's sort of the repercussions of that in the world and in his family.
And you play what in that?
I play a young woman who works for Robert Redford's character, which is the...
Oh, so he is the scientist who discovers it. So most of your scenes are with Robert Redford.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably terrible, right?
Yeah,
No
it was
fun at
amazing.
all.
No, it was so amazing. I've had like a couple moments in my life where I've been like, whoa, and that was definitely...
So is that the kind of thing, though? I mean, as you work and you do more films, and that becomes easier, or is there always that day when you're working with somebody of that stature where you're like, I need a minute, and then does it get easier from there?
It's different person to person, and I don't know if the stature matters as much as like the person's... I'm very, very sensitive to people's energy, so if whatever they're feeling, I'll like feel what they're feeling. So that to me is more, you know, he's a really sweet, amazing, wonderful human being, so it was easy. If he was like an like, I would be like feeling a bit weird. But,
Right, it would be harder.
Yeah.
I feel like he is probably one of those people that's just a great teacher by example too.
He is, and he's just so like, he's like a movie star. He is a movie star, but you really feel it sitting with him. It's a beautiful thing to experience.
So lucky.
Yeah.
And so what's next?
I'm doing a film before Steven's film, and then I go to Steven's film, and I think I'm doing a film after Steven's film.
So it's going okay.
Yeah, hopefully continues to. And I'm writing a film at the moment.
Oh, what's that about?
I don't want to say because I haven't fully figured the whole story out yet.
And will this be the first thing you've written?
I've started to write a bunch of things. It'll be the first thing I've finished. Yeah.
All right, well then we'll let you go so you can finish
Yeah.
it. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us out there. Make sure to check out The Girlfriend Experience. And for more Envy coverage and TV news, check out LAtimes.com. Thanks.